Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Gasmask 360. I just got back from seeing Spider Man No Way Home. And boy, let me tell you, it was a ride. It had its ups, it had its downs. And today, I'm going to give you my thoughts on them. And this is going to be filled with spoilers. Um, so, spoiler review. So this is your warning now. If you don't want spoilers, click off, go watch the movie, come back. Or, if you have seen the movie and you're curious what other people think about it, or if you don't care about spoilers, welcome. Please enjoy your stay. So I just got home from seeing it at my local theater, and I got to tell you, I just had a big smile on my face the whole movie. The movie delivers in so many ways. You know, never before have so many people come together, but never before has there been a movie quite like this. And, you have movies with multiple super powerful characters in it, heroes and villains alike. You have movies like X-Men that have a whole bunch of characters with superpowers. You got, the Avengers movies and, just some other crossover stuff that happens from time to time that have multiple superpower people in them. But, there's a certain, expectation when it comes to some of those films where it's like, well, I expect, all these different characters to be here. So that's not really the surprise. Avengers Infinity War, and Endgame have a huge cast of characters that we've gotten to know over the course of several films. But, that's to be expected. Like, you expect them all to be there in some capacity and do something. Now, leaks and everything aside for Spider-Man No Way Home, this is not the kind of movie you would expect to bring honestly, not even that many, but still quite a few, characters from across the live action Spider-Verse, films. And I think it did a really good job with most of it. Some of it fell flat, but we'll get into that. So, obviously, starting from the beginning picks up where Far From Home left off. Spider-Man's identity is out there to the public. He's being painted as a criminal. So he's having to deal with that. Like his not only has his identity just been exposed to the entire world, and now obviously he's getting all this attention, and obviously people he knows are getting all this attention that's pretty much unwanted. But now he's also being painted as like a criminal murderer. Which, funny enough, that whole sequence is kind of hand waved pretty quickly. Not too quickly, mind you. But it's definitely not something they focus on very much. There's a lot more this movie goes over than dealing with that. So they're like, well, how do we take care of that problem? really quick. Oh, well, you just bring in Matt Murdock, Daredevil, from the Daredevil Netflix show, and he's a really good lawyer. So he gets Peter Parker. He gets Tom Holland, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, out of a lot of legal trouble, and so that takes care of that plot point. And you see, here's the thing. I think the beginning of this movie, like the first 30, 35 or so minutes of this film, I think are the weakest. A lot of the humor at the beginning, I think, kind of falls flat. And so the movie doesn't really pick up completely. The movie doesn't really come in, pick up until Doc Ock shows up on the highway. Now, obviously, you have the scene with Matt Murdock helping Tom Holland before that, and that got a huge cheer. Was a completely packed theater. There was a lot of cheering at everyone. It's so many scenes in this movie. It was crazy. So that was one of them. And that was definitely one of the few highlights of the beginning of the film. But the movie really picks up. And starts to carry itself more, I think, when Doc Ock shows up on the highway. Followed by Green Goblin. And so obviously, we get into kind of the whole point of this film being Peter goes to Doctor Strange because he wants everyone to forget he's Spider-Man, so that him and his friends can get back to living a normal life. Doesn't go well. The spell goes awry. Starts bringing in people from across the multiverse who know who Peter Parker is. And it just so happens to bring in people like Dr. Octavius, Green Goblin, both from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. You get, as well as Sandman. And then you get Electro and the Lizard from the Amazing Spider-Man movies. And so then it becomes like, oh, we got to hunt these guys down, we got to capture them, we got to send them back. It's like, okay, it's fine. So they all get their own kind of little introductions here and there. And yeah, it's just like he catches all of them except for Green Goblin. All of them except for Norman Osborn, who's played by Willem Dafoe. Great guy. And whoa. So funny enough, he just shows up where Aunt May is, like he's homeless. She's like, oh, he just wandered in. He really needs your help, Peter. And he's like, okay, yeah, sure. And so he brings him back. He's doing his Norman Osborn. He's acting all nice and old and confused, and he's not himself all the time. And he gets brought back to where all the other villains are being held. And Doctor Strange shows up and he's like, okay, it's time to send them all back to their world. And if that means some of them die fighting Spider-Man, then some of them die fighting Spider-Man. It's their problem, not our problem. And you know, Tom Holland is like getting some second thoughts because, you know, his Aunt May was like, you know, we help people, and, you know, they need your help. You should try and help them. And then Peter gets it into his head like, oh, well, you know, what if I can help them so they don't have to die? What if I can save them? Doctor Strange is like, no, that's stupid. And then they fight. Spider-Man and Doctor Strange fight. And they have a cool little crazy multi-dimensional fight. And then Doctor Strange gets like trapped for most of the movie, so he can't interfere anymore. And Spider-Man comes back. He's like, all right, guys, I want to help you if you'll let me. I want to save you guys so you don't have to die. And some of them are like, okay, sure. And some of them are like, no, fuck you. But they eventually all go along with it anyways. And so he takes them all back to where they're staying, to where him and his aunt are staying. And they're staying with Happy at Happy's apartment. And so he takes them there, and he's like, all right, I'm going to try and like develop these things that can help each one of your conditions. And he starts with Dr. Octavius. And Dr. Octavius is kind of crazy right now still. Each villain kind of has their own little thing they go over about, oh, well, I was in the middle of fighting my Spider-Man, and then I ended up here. It's like, oh, fuck, like, some of them came to the realization, like, oh, I did die, didn't I? Or I was about to die. Something along those lines. Some of them, not all of them. And so, some of the villains, they're some of them are utilized better than others. Green Goblin is probably one of the better ones, definitely. He kind of steals the show and the scenes he's in. Doc Ock is utilized very well. And then Electro has some funny lines. And Sandman and Lizard are definitely the most underutilized. Like they have their moments for sure, but at the same time, like as far as characters go, they're kind of just there. Like it's basically just this is Green Goblin and Doc Ock get the most characterization in this film, and Electro gets a little bit, and Sandman and Lizard don't. It's just like, we're just here, and you're like, okay, can't win them all. But anyways, so Tom Holland, Peter Parker, Spider-Man fixes the chip that connects to the spinal cord on Doc Ock that helped him control the claws instead of them controlling him, which was the case in up to this point, which is why, he was still crazy. So he fixes the chip, and Doc Ock is his old self, and he controls the claws, and is actually really grateful after all that. And as soon as that happens, that's when Norman Osborn, Green Goblin, kind of flips the switch and is like, you know what? No. You don't need to fix this. We don't need your help. Like we have all this power and we deserve to keep it. So fuck you, basically. And so he starts fighting Spider-Man, and Electro and Sandman kind of take off, and Lizard takes off. And so Peter's just fighting Spider-Man, and Oh, well, Electro blasts Doc Ock out the building. And so he's kind of out of the picture temporarily. And so Peter and Green Goblin are throwing down, and he's telling Aunt May to get out of there. And Green Goblin puts the fucking work in on Spider-Man. Like, on Tom Holland, he beats the crap out of him. And it's amazing. It's like, you almost wish you could have seen this kind of brutality in Spider-Man 1 with Tobey Maguire, but, you know, they had to use their budget on other things. So yeah, it was just like insane. And we get a really powerful scene there at the end, you know, of that confrontation that comes to a head when, unfortunately, Green Goblin kills Aunt May. And I was like, wow, they actually did that. That's pretty crazy. But not before Aunt May, some of her last words to Tom Holland, Spider-Man, is, with great power comes great responsibility, and telling him that by trying to help these supervillains, he still did the right thing. Despite what was happening, despite her dying, that she thinks he did the right thing trying to help them. And then she dies, you know, in front of him. And yeah, that affects him in a big way. Like, it's pretty crazy. And so we cut away from that, and we go back, and we see Ned and MJ. And they're off doing their own little thing. And Ned actually has one of Doctor Strange's, like, magic ring things. And he says something earlier in the movie about, like, oh, hey, like, apparently, like, there's magic in my family, you know, can I do that? And it's kind of like a joke, kind of like just one of Ned's stupid jokes that he kind of does sometimes. But no, he can actually kind of open portals, so it's like, oh, maybe there's some truth there. So it's like, oh man, we really just want to find him, like everyone's seeing on the news, like what happened at the apartment complex, and that Aunt May's dead. Like, man, if only we could find Peter Parker. If only we could see him right now. So Ned, like, opens a portal, and they see Spider-Man, but it looks kind of different. And Spider-Man comes through the portal, you know, he's in his whole suit and everything, and he takes his mask off, and long behold, it's Andrew Garfield actually in the movie. Crowd went crazy. Like, insane. And then, you know, after he proves them, like, oh yes, I'm actually Spider-Man, too, by crawling around and shooting webs. They're like, oh, okay, well, let's try that again. And they do it, and Tobey Maguire comes through, and he's not even in a Spider-Man outfit. Like, he's just Tobey Maguire. And everyone loses their mind again. And so obviously they prove to each other that they're Spider-Man. And so they have a fun little moment there. And then you transition to the school rooftop or something, where Tom Holland is mourning the loss of his aunt, and MJ and Ned go over and hug him. It's a really sweet scene, and then they're like, "Hey, you know, there's some people here that want to meet you," and it's, you know, obviously the other Spider-Man that came with him. He's like, whoa, 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 like, he's kind of frazzled right now. He doesn't think he can trust them. But they all share a really powerful, very emotional moment of just like, you know, we've been through similar stuff. Like, we've all lost someone we really cared about, multiple people, and they all kind of really share a moment, and that kind of builds, you know, kind of a relationship between all of them. Um, Toby, you know, losing Uncle Ben, and Andrew Garfield losing Gwen Stacy. And then the fact that both of their uncle, both Andrew and Toby's Uncle Ben's, and then his aunt, and then and then Andrew I'm getting the names mixed up already. And then Tom Holland, Aunt May, you know, all said, "With great power comes great responsibility," before they died. So you have kind of like this connecting thread there. That's really powerful and shared between all of them. And so then they're like, okay, we're gonna come up with all this stuff to try and save these villains. And so they all go to like the school lab and start making like cures and everything for all these powers. It's pretty, and they have some more cute little scenes there. And then you transition to kind of like the final bit of the movie at the Statue of Liberty, right on the scaffolding. You're getting some really good banter with all three. Spider-Man getting in the mood, getting ready for battle. And yeah, and all three Spider-Men team up and fight fight the bad guys together. They start by taking out Sandman and Lizard. And there's an issue here that not only is Sandman and Lizard like the least developed as far as like villain characters in this movie goes, when they cure them, it's like they reuse footage from Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 1 of like the scene of where Sandman is like turning into Sandman for the first time, but they like reverse it. And then obviously they reuse the exact same shot from Amazing Spider-Man when the doctor guy gets cured from being the Lizard. And it's like, why not just have their actors there? They're the same people. Like the same people voicing the characters. Like Sandman is just Sand the whole time. And then Lizard's just Lizard the whole time. But they have like the same voices, I'm pretty sure. So I'm not sure why they couldn't get like the actual actors to just be there when they're cured of their powers. They have to use like they have to use scenes from those movies of them being like, it's weird. And then they deal with Electro, and Electro's actually got the upper hand because he's upgraded himself with an arc reactor. So he's a lot more powerful than he was in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And all like the Spider-Men from their particular like Spider universe that have connections with these villains have some fun little moments with the villains from their movies. So that's kind of cool. So Andrew Garfield has some fun dialogue with Jamie Foxx as Electro. it's kind of silly. But yeah, he's getting the upper hand, and then Doc Ock shows up, and like you think like, oh, he's here to help Electro. But you know, if you remember, he kind of has no reason to unless the electricity broke his chip again. But then he turns on Electro and rips the arc reactor off of him, and so they get the best of him and take his power away from him. And then they're like, "Oh wow!" Like Toby sees, you know, Dr. Octavius again, and is like, "Holy shit! Like, you're back!" And he's like, "I'm back." And then Green Goblin shows up. He waits till last to come in and um, starts messing with him. And yeah, it's crazy. Tom uh, knocks him off his little his glider thing, and they have a brawl, and Tom Holland is not holding back. He's not throwing his punches necessarily. Like he wants revenge. He wants to kill Green Goblin for killing Aunt May, and before he can finish Green Goblin off, obviously, Tobey Maguire comes in and blocks it and is like, he doesn't say this, but he's like, this isn't you, man. And then so Tom Holland, like, you know, comes back to his senses and sets it down, and then Goblin actually attacks Tobey Maguire, and you're like, oh shit, like, are they gonna kill Tobey Maguire in this movie? So he's laying there wounded, and then Andrew Garfield, I think, tosses like the serum to Tom Holland, who then injects Green Goblin with it, and it takes away his like crazy Green Goblin super soldier strength, powers and everything, and he's just like back to being Norman Osborn. He's like, what have I done? What have I done? But Tobey Maguire is okay. He's like, yeah, I've been stabbed before. I'm good. And so he doesn't die. So thank goodness for that. And then Doctor Strange is there. And he's like, yeah, the multiverse is coming apart now. And I can't, like, I'm having trouble fixing it. And so Tom Holland is like, goes up there, is like, oh, there's gotta be something I can do. He's like, can you just do the spell again? And he's like, no, I can't. Like, that's not how it works. And he's like, okay, don't do the exact same spell again, but do what we were originally going to do and just make everyone forget about me. And he's like, are you sure? Because everyone is gonna forget who Peter Parker is. No one's gonna remember you. And he's like, well, if that's the only way that this can work, and he's like, that's the only way that I can think of that can save us from being our universe from being ripped apart. And he's like, all right, do it. And he's like, okay, well, go say your goodbyes, because this is it. And so Tom Holland goes, and he says goodbye to Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, and all the villains and them are sent back to their own worlds again, their own universes. And you know, he's there, he's saying goodbye to MJ and Ned and letting them know what's happening, and obviously they're very upset and everything, and he's like, you know, I'll come find you guys, and I'll I'll make you remember me. And so he leaves. Spell goes off, world's fixed, time skip. Tom Holland is walking around, no one knows who he is anymore. People remember Spider-Man. People know that there is a Spider-Man and remember what Spider-Man's done, but they don't know who Peter Parker is anymore. So they've kind of wiped the slate clean in that sense. And that's kind of interesting to see where that goes in the future, since I'm pretty sure there's going to be more Spider-Man movies. I'm pretty sure that's confirmed. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out for his character. But he goes, and he goes to like the little coffee shop or something that MJ works at. And he goes there, and she's like, oh, hi, you know, what can I help you with? And he introduces himself. He says, hey, I'm Peter Parker. He's got like this whole thing like written out, like what he wants to say. And you know, Ned shows up and walks over to MJ, and they're having a fun time talking. And you know, she's like, "Oh, yeah, can I help you?" He's like, yeah, can I get a coffee? And she's like, yeah, sure. And they kind of have this quiet, like little, kind of like awkward little moment and everything. And like Peter's thinking, like, should I remind them who I am? And he's just kind of like looking, he's like just at MJ and Ned, and they're getting ready to go off to college and everything and live their own life, and they're just having a good time. And he's just like, he doesn't say anything. He's just like, she's just like, is there anything else you need? And he's like, no, nothing else. Thanks for the coffee. I'll see you around. And he leaves. He doesn't try and remind him who he is, or anything. He's just like, I think they're better off without knowing who I am. Which is really crazy, because it's just like you might like expect him to be like, oh, I love you, you're my girlfriend MJ, oh my gosh, please remember me, like, oh my gosh, Ned, you're my best friend, we went through so much, it's so crazy. But no, it's actually kind of surprising. It's like, wow, there are some consequences to this movie. He goes and visits Aunt May's grave, and Happy's there, and Happy's like, how'd you know her? He's like, I knew her through Spider-Man. You? Same. He's like, well, it was good. It was nice meeting you. Yeah, likewise. No one knows him anymore. And it's just like, that's crazy. And he moves into his own new apartment and everything, and makes his own spider suit for once. Like, makes himself his own suit and goes out and fights crime as Spider-Man. So, I mean, that's pretty, that's what happens. That's the movie. Like, obviously, it's, you just have to see it. If you haven't already seen it, you have to go see it. It's incredible. There's a lot more going on. It's way more exciting seeing it than me just going over the whole film effectively. But yeah, some of the humor in this movie didn't really work for me. One of my buddies I saw the movie with, I think kind of spoke the truth when he was like, I think Ned's character peaked in Homecoming and then just kind of stagnated after that, and I agree. Ned's humor hasn't really worked for me at all since Homecoming. MJ's okay. It's nothing too special there. This is probably definitely Tom Holland's best performance, I think. I think he did a really great job in this movie. Dealt with the powerful stuff very well. And his own comedy worked more for me than some of the rest of the comedy did. Some of the comedy and dialogue between the villains kind of was a little flat and didn't land the thing I think they wanted it to, the way I think they wanted it to. But other than that, like it was just a fun time. Like the fact that this movie happened, the way it happened is incredible. Like, I definitely go see it again, for sure. So I think I give it an 8.5 overall out of 10. Really enjoyed this movie. It was a lot of fun. Not everything landed, but enough of it did. I think the really powerful emotional moments were handled very well. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in the movie a lot more than I thought they were going to be. the villains that you kind of want more out of, you get, and then the others are just kind of there, and that's fine. But yeah, so it's just like leave it to Spider-Man to make me more excited about where things are gonna go. So yeah, guys, appreciate you stopping by, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.